So why can't I remember shit? Well, it has a lot to do with metal folding chairs. I mean, regular metal folding chairs. You know how, like on Thanksgiving, the chairs you break out to put at the extra table where you put the family members that are nobody else really wants to talk to and shit, the extra table down the way, and you get out the metal folding chairs. They had a lot to do with it. Of course, the way we used them was a little different than how they're used on Thanksgiving. The way we used them was 300-pound meatheads would bash me over the head with them, and that generally doesn't happen at Thanksgiving, you know, unless you insult grandma's stuffing or something. But before I get into that, let me just point out that in the last video, I gave you a choice of a couple topics asking you what you'd like to see me talk about next. Would it be why I can't remember shit, or talking about my stepdaughter who has multiple disabilities, who you guys saw in our Thanksgiving video, and you overwhelmingly went for the wrestling. But I didn't mean to give you the impression that I wasn't going to do both. I will. I'm gonna introduce you to my Renee as well. This one is gonna be next. So let's get right down to it. My love of wrestling goes way, way back. When I was a little kid, I was very much into sports, and baseball specifically. From the time I was not quite 5, I was already into baseball. And this is going back in the days of only 3 channels on the TV, so you only got to watch baseball on TV on Saturdays. So I would spend all week at school, couldn't wait, and you got one game, and it was rarely ever my team, which was the Pittsburgh Pirates, but I didn't care. I wanted to see them. But then I discovered wrestling on Sundays. And it changed me. It really changed me. Changed the direction of my life. By the time I was 7, we lived out in the country, and I had built my own little quasi wrestling ring in the backyard using some fence posts and my mom's what's the word I want, guys? And my mom's clothesline rope. She wasn't too happy that her clothesline was down when she came home, but I was hitting the ropes as Bruno Sammartino. So I'd always loved the business and always wanted to be part of it. And if I told you guys all the stories of wrestling, it would take forever. So if you guys enjoy this, I'll tell you more in future videos. But for right now, let's just get to why I can't remember shit. I first broke into wrestling back in 1980 in New Mexico. I lived in the Southwest and went to a promotion in Albuquerque, not too awful far, a few hours from where I lived, and started working with those guys. And after working with them for a while, I went down to Texas to try out with the big time, and that's when I discovered that pro wrestlers are on the road over 300 days a year. And I was always, even at that point, I was just too much involved with family. I was like 19 or 20, and I was too much into family to ever want to do that kind of travel that the big time guys had to do. So I knew I wanted to wrestle, but it was always going to be on the little local indie scene. And I've been happy with that. I have no regrets about that whatsoever. I love what I have with my family, and I wouldn't have been able to have that, keeping that kind of schedule. And I never had a bad night wrestling. And there's not a day goes by that I don't miss it and resent my body for getting too old to keep doing it. Should have just kept taking the beatings. But wrestlers have to have a gimmick. Now, it was clear to me early on that I wasn't going to be like one of the pretty boys. I wasn't much of a high flyer, but the one thing I could do is I could take a beating like nobody's business. And I liked giving beatings. I liked violence. I'm fucked up, I would imagine, but that was my thing. Back then, we didn't call it hardcore matches. We just called it beating the shit out of each other. But those were my type of matches and always had been. And that's how I built my reputation. Fans that came knew that the matches were going to be ultra violent. I would learn some years later when they were diagnosing me with postconcussion syndrome from the multiple shots with metal folding chairs and sinks and shovels and anything else that we could use to dent my skull, or more often than not, dent the item. We learned that I am not quite 6 foot tall, and I have almost a size 8 hat, which is at 7 7/8. And sometimes those are a little snug, and that's with a shaved head. In other words, what that means, I have a giant fucking melon. It's huge. And I found out from the doctor, he said the only reason, because he did this whole test on me, and he asked me he explained what the 3 stages of concussion are, from least to most severe, and then asked me how many of each I had in the past, something like month, 6 months, year, 5 years, 10 years. And at that time, in the past year, I'd been unconscious in the ring twice, and that's an immediate stage 3. And when I gave him the whole rundown, he said, you should already be just sitting in a corner drooling, and came to the conclusion the only thing that protected me was this giant, thick plate. I basically have a football helmet underneath the flesh on my head. He told me everybody's bone density is different, and the bone in my skull is just massively huge, and it kept me from, at least to this point anyway, just sitting around going, I mean, not that I do that much more than that now, but, a little something extra. And I had told him at the time, and that kind of offended me, because I told the doctor, I said, listen, I've been telling everybody my whole life that my head is huge because it's full of brains. And he said, no, it's bone. I have the x-ray right here if you want me to prove it, because he was a dick. So that was my gimmick, and that's the route I went. And to illustrate that, I've got a folder here on the computer. It doesn't have all my wrestling pictures, but it's got a few of them. I thought I'd pop a few of them up for you. Here's one from a particularly good night. Now, if you can see that well, my wife took this as she was preparing to put the super glue. I don't like going to the doctor, so I just have her put super glue in my head and hold it back together. This one was after it was all cleaned up, of course, but if you can make it out, you can see there's a huge knot underneath the gash, and it almost looks, because I can't point to it here, obviously, but for you to see it, I'm pointing to it like it's going to help you, because I'm pointing to my computer screen. There's like a couple of little dots there. I don't know if it's marks or maybe freckles or something, but it looks like 2 eyes, and the gash is the mouth. It looks like I got a little happy face that had a bad car accident on the back of my head or something. But that's how I ended up looking a lot of nights. This was from a night where we put a hardcore, one promotion I worked for, put a hardcore belt into play, and I won the hardcore title that night and lost a really lot of blood. There's results of another fun night, not the same one from earlier. Let's see. There's one. Oh yeah, here's with the barbed wire bat. Yeah, that was my friend. I used to love the barbed wire bat. So it gives you an idea of exactly how my matches unfolded. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm looking for some of the pictures that give you a good idea of this. I know there are more in here, but I'm missing a lot of them right now. Yeah, isn't it fun to watch me do a vlog video so you can watch me think? Yeah, I'm not seeing them. I know, but I'll find them for you, and I'll do them in future videos, because I know I've got a bunch more. Here's this one. This was just going nuts on the turnbuckle after a match with a couple of small lacerations. There was one specifically I wanted to show you guys, and I cannot find it. And when I do, I'll tell you the little story behind it. But that gives you an idea of exactly the type of matches I went through. So that's why I cannot remember shit. Because the doctor said with postconcussion syndrome, he said the thing is, it'll play havoc on your short-term memory, but won't really affect your long-term memory. And I thought that was bullshit when he said it. Because I'm certainly not a neurologist. You probably didn't know that. But it didn't seem to me that the brain could be that finely divided that it would only affect one part of the memory. But he's right, it does. I mean, I can still tell you all kinds of things from out back in my backyard in that wrestling ring when I was 6, 7, whatever years old. But remembering what I had for lunch, sometimes that comes in handy because I eat lunch more than once, and I can go, oh, I forgot, even if I didn't, because I like to eat a lot. But that's where it left me. Now, what I will go into, I can't tell you all my stories because this video would go on for days, but my favorite match, I get asked that a lot. The 2 things I get asked the most are, what titles have you won, and what was your favorite match? Titles I won all kinds of indie titles. I really don't remember a lot of them, as you can see why. But besides that, to me, wrestling, I love the business. And it's always been about putting on a great show, not about how many belts you can win. Belts are cool because if you win a title, it just means that the promotion you're working for values what you're doing for them. You're doing a good job. You're making the people love you or hate you, whatever you're supposed to do. So that's cool. But as far as overall, it was all about putting on a good show. And that's where my favorite match comes in. And for those of you who want to hear, I'll tell you that story. I'll try and make it as brief as I can. But we had a regular stop we did in Vermont. Now, the promoter there asked me to play the heel, the bad guy, hard. And I was vicious to those people. we were there every month, and after about 3 months, he comes to me and says, "You might need to tone it down, dude. They're going to burn this place down." I said, "Fuck you. You told me to play the heel hard. I'm doing it." The first night I went in there, I remember being on the mic, and I said, it was just a little, I don't even remember the name of the town. It was a little town in, what did I say? I think it was Vermont. And I got on the mic and said something about, I knew I was in trouble when I came into this little piece of crap town because I went into the video store and the movie Deliverance was in the section marked instructional videos. And I looked around and I said, and now what's even more disturbing is you freaking inbreds don't know why that's wrong. So, needless to say, they weren't big fans of mine. So the one night I come in, I hit the ring, and my buddy Todd was reffing, and I guess this one guy had been giving him a hard time, and he knew I was going to go after the crowd, so Todd says, "Go get that idiot in the blue shirt, that hillbilly in the blue shirt." Well, it's this guy older than me at the time. He was probably about my age. I think I was in my late 30s at the time. He was probably the same. Real skinny guy, looked all the hillbilly part, there with his wife, and no teeth, a bunch of teeth missing and stuff. And I used to be vicious to him. I bullied him and was mean to him. And he'd try and fight back, but he wasn't good at it. And he'd puff his chest out at me. And I'd say, listen, honey, before you go throwing your chest out at me, why don't you go home and grow one? Do a push-up or something. And I would ask him. I would say, "And who's this beast right here? That's your wife?" And I'd proposition her, say, "Would you..." Now this was up close and personal. I didn't do this on the mic. This was as I would come out, I would get right in their face and do it, so kids weren't hearing what I was saying, because stuff I was saying was disgusting. I would tell him all the things that he could do to me that I would enjoy with those gaps in his teeth and everything. And this guy freaking hated me. All I did was bully him and be mean to him. So we were having a tournament to determine this group's champion. So every month I would come back up, and the finals of the tournament were going to be me, because I was the top heel, bad guy, against the top baby face, top good guy. So every month we would come and I would win because I had to move on to the tournament. So the month we were going up there to have the title match, the promoter of the operation, we called him Bumpy, he took out a billboard with our pictures on it and everything, promoted the shit out of it. We had a huge crowd. And so we're meeting in the back, me, the promoter, and my buddy Mike, who I was wrestling. He was the top baby face. And so Bumpy says, "Well, why don't we just do a coin flip and the winner takes the belt?" And I said, "No." I said, "We got to do this the right way." I said, "I've been up here beating their favorites every month and infuriating these people." I said, "This is about telling a story. We're going to give them what they want. Tonight, I'm going to lose, and I want Mike to beat the shit out of me." I found every kind of weapon, chair, anything I could find that I wanted him to hit me with, because that's how wrestling works. You tell a story, and you pay it off. And the payoff was good triumphs over evil. Now, next month, we'll start a whole brand new story where evil resurrects itself again. But for right now, I needed to lose that match. It's not fair to the paying fans for me to be the initial champion. I felt it should be a good guy. So that's what we decided to do. So we went through that match, and I took that beating, and it was a beating. And we got all done, and the promoter was also, Mike, my opponent, also played his manager. The last thing I took was a kendo stick from Bumpy. He hit me so hard with the kendo stick, he broke it across my head. I was already beat to shit from the match and the chair shots, and I don't even remember what else we did. But I remember getting hit with that kendo stick, and I felt the warmth of the blood just pouring down my face. And I was about to roll out because I was finally done, and I looked over and I realized this guy who I had been torturing endlessly was there. And he was standing. And now, mind you, this was a guy, I can guarantee you, he didn't have a lot of money. And this was general seating at this arena, so it was first come, first serve, but him and his wife were in the same seats every month, which means they were the first ones in line to get that seat. That's how important this was to him. You could tell it was a big deal. He got involved in the characters. He was a fan of our promotion, which is what you appreciate. So I saw him looking on, and he was happy, obviously, because I finally took my beating. So I rolled out right in front of him, and I got on the floor, and I sat there, and the blood streaming down my face, and I looked up at him, and I said, stop laughing at me. And he went ballistic, and he starts laughing and pointing. And I said, don't, stop, what's wrong with you? I'm really hurt. I'm hurt bad. Why are you laughing? Don't laugh at me. And I'm holding my head. Think about it. Everybody's had a bully in their life. How perfect is life when your bully is sitting on the floor in a puddle of his own blood, crying like a little bitch and begging that you don't laugh at him anymore because he's hurt. That was my favorite match of all time. That was telling the story, and that guy was wrapped up into our stories. He wasn't going to go to work the next day at the DNA research lab. He wasn't a genius guy, but he loved wrestling. And he got involved with these characters that we wanted him to get involved with. And he came every month and he paid for his tickets and he bought our merchandise. And he was a fan and he got what he deserved. He'd been tortured. He'd been bullied. He'd been talked down to. And in the end, the bully took it up the ass. And I had to not smile myself because I looked up and he was on his chair screaming at me, just fuck you, there, fuck you. And I'm going, don't, shut up. And the more I whined, the better he felt. That was my favorite match of all time. So if you guys want more wrestling stories and stuff, just let me know. A lot more of these vlogs coming up, and I will tell you all the story of my sweet little Renee very soon, as well as, I'll do vlogs that are topical, not just personal, but anything you want me to talk about specifically too, let me know in the comments section. But that was my favorite match. I can still see that guy's toothless smile. He was the happiest guy in the state of Vermont that night, no doubt.